So welcome everybody. I am so excited to be here with one of the most lovely ladies that I know. As of recently, I've just met her maybe in the last year. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
But I'm so thrilled actually to have my first guest on my YouTube channel. You're my first. Yay! So exciting, but I'm excited to have Katie here because Katie is offering an incredible program for all you educators out there. And I know, my community includes moms, working moms, women who just are feeling overwhelmed, who carry the weight of a lot of responsibility. And I know for a fact that there are many of you in my community who are teachers. Like we've talked about what's coming, and we've talked about navigating through the summer, trying not to hold all the uncertainty before the school year hits. And this is why I'm so excited to have Katie here to share with you some tips, and also about her program that she's going to be launching real soon. I think it's on Monday, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, next Monday, which is, what's the date on that, Katie?
I mean, it technically starts on July 26th on Sunday. I'll start really supporting the community in the Facebook group, but yeah, we'll hit the ground running with lessons and guided practices and things like that starting Monday, July 27th.
Yeah. So I thought we would just dive in first and foremost with a little bit of an introduction. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing your background, your expertise, and why why bring this program forward, especially at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, before I give an introduction, I just want to say thank you for having me here. It's such an honor to be your first guest. Even before I knew you, Tina, I had heard about you for 4 years of you have to know Tina. She's the most amazing person ever. So I'm super excited that we ended up connecting. So I'm excited to be here. So thank you. So I'm Katie Raher. I am the founder of Constant Love and Learning. And I'm also a teacher turned school psychologist. And I also, you can see some stuff behind me that I do. I work to support kids and help educators support kids using social and emotional learning using the Komochi's program. I'm a Komochi certified trainer too. I'm also a mama to 7 and a 9-year-olds, and married to an educator as well. My husband's a high school teacher, so lots of educational things at our house all the time. And so that's a little bit about me. And the reason I do what I do around educator well-being is because I was somebody who historically never even saw the value in that. I pushed and pushed and pushed so hard, and I'm a perfectionist in recovery. I did everything for everybody else, did everything else for everyone. It was just, I never even made it on my very long to-do list. And then actually at multiple points throughout my career had some crashes and burns, and it did not go so well. The first time around, at sort of the end of when I transitioned from teaching to grad school to become a school psychologist, I'd crashed and burned, but never even remotely thought it was because I wasn't taking care of myself or because I was working 90-hour weeks to try to make sure my classroom and the entire school, I was on every committee and blah, blah, blah. I just thought, oh, I just need to learn more, and that's exciting, and go back. Never dawned on me that I should take care of myself.
That was at the crux of it all.
Yeah. So, or that could just shift everything. And so then I just kept on pushing. And then about 4 years ago, which is probably why I found out about you, because people are like, she's so great with that kind of stuff, I crashed and burned and finally started to listen. I was my body was just so out of control, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I was sleeping just a few hours at night, often broken because of insomnia, and I was having blood sugar crashes, and I was just emotionally a mess. And so I was actually at school one day when I was sitting in a meeting, and my body started to convulse And I was just like, okay, my intuition was like, nope, no, you cannot do this anymore. And I started to listen and think, I don't think I can do this anymore. And so that was when I started to really slowly and steadily crawl my way out of this very deep hole I had dug myself into, and learned so much, and have found found myself again in the process of taking better care of myself. It's interesting to me because even though I've been an educator for almost 20 years, my PhD program took 6 years, even though I had all these and I also had all this professional development in schools, I never ever got training in, oh, by the way, you should take care of yourself. Mm. It was all about how to take care of the kids, which of course we need to know. Absolutely. But taking care of yourself is so vital in our capacity to take care of kids, both in schools and in our homes. Mm-hmm. And so it was really interesting to me that had never really been a part of the landscape of what the support we give to educators. And
if I could pause you there, it blows my mind. I have a very similar story, as you know, and it blew my mind that wasn't part of our education in school, period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like PE or health ed, or you know what I mean? That piece yes. seems like a real important piece to know, right? Yeah. To maintain your well-being throughout your life. Yeah. So I love that you're bringing that up. Not just educators who are, serving other kids, but period, everybody.
Yeah.
Having that information, or not having that information be just standard. Yeah. You and I both, we learned the hard way. We had to crash and burn in order to come up on that. Literally, we were getting schooled. And we had to figure it out ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to note that, so important.
Yeah, and I think there's, sort of a subtle training along our lives with, I think men, by and large, more generally are given permission to rest. Mm-hmm. My husband will be like, I'm feeling tired, I'm gonna lay down. And for me, I'm like, oh, can I do that? That's like my mentality most of my life.
Yeah.
Can I just stop?
Yeah, they also they don't feel any qualms about it. They don't feel bad about hurting anybody's feelings, or what is somebody gonna think if, you know what I mean? They're just I'm tired, I'm gonna stop now.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And I love that that my husband does that. And I'm like, wow, that's what, so now I'm working on that. And I have been working on that, and it's because it's a journey. Yes. So it's, and I feel women, and then also in particular, women of color, I feel the messaging is you should be taking care of everyone all the time. And that's, and sort of to me, it's revolutionary to be taking care of ourselves, adding ourselves to the list, and oh my goodness, putting ourselves at the top of the list. And the really awesome thing is it allows us then to better serve the kids, because so in my, historically, say for, I sort of entered the education profession in part because, as most educators do, because I was really great with kids. I was so patient. And then I could see that sort of declining over time. And even though I would still do my absolute best to maintain my control, inside my frustration was and it was so hard to navigate that. And so then as I was just taking care of myself because I needed to, at that point, my body was it's not a question anymore. It's not an option. You have to. I realized that, wow, when I'm around kids and colleagues and things are frustrating me, I'm actually just calmer. I'm back to where I once was, when I was way younger and things like that. And so there's so much power in taking care of ourselves. So I say one of my little mottos is, we have to do self-care to spread care. And that's really the way to go about things. Katie Reed has a great quote about basically self-care also allows us to give the best of ourselves rather than what's left of us, right? So it's the best of us instead of what's left of us. And that's what we want to give to the people we love, to our students, to our own kids, to our friends, our families. Yeah. And so of course we deserve it just because we're human. And then also it does allow us to do exactly what we want to do. And then there's this like great sort of cycle, because it's like, oh, I'm filled up. Now I serve the kids better. That actually feels more, you know, I feel more purpose in life. So that fills me up more. And it just kind of then has this great ripple effect. And so that there's so much power in that. And so to me, self-care though is, it's not just your occasional thing you do. Like yesterday, my daughter and me had a little date, and we did some pedicure, home pedicure version things. And yes, that was some self-care. But it's not just that. It's there's so much more complex than that. It's, I think, every single thing we do and say to fill ourselves up, and it's on a daily basis. This is not a once in a while, once a week, once a month, once a year thing. This is day in and day out a commitment to ourselves. This is shifting our mindset so that, you know, because if I'm sitting there getting a pedicure by my daughter, you know, who's 9, if I'm sitting there criticizing myself, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I raised my voice with her earlier, blah, blah, you know, and I'm attacking myself, I'm not taking care of myself. But if I'm sitting there shifting that, going, wow, look at this, like I'm like really building our connection, and I'm focusing on the positive and nurturing that. I'm so grateful for this time with her, and doing those kinds of things. That is building my well-being up. And then from like a psychological perspective, we have these things called mirror neurons. They're sort of like these subconscious things that we can read through each other. And because I'm calmer and I'm in this like sort of gratitude state and in this, you know, joyful state, my daughter feels that, or whoever I'm around feels that. And then it's just like, again, these ripple effects.
That to me, so like, if I could pause you for a second.
Yeah, of course, pause me anytime. I'm a talker.
No, I feel like, because everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, like throw my hands in the air. But you know what you mentioned about like those mirror neurons, right? And this is something I was sharing just before we hopped on, that I watched your video, you know, on your program page, and you talk about this. Like a couple of things that really stood out to me was, you know, when we're calm, when we can bring ourselves to a place of calm, it's like we can't help. And you talk about that ripple effect, right? Even if we're not trying, we are creating, you know what I mean, that for others, or we're helping them to connect to that calm in themselves. And we don't have to say not a word. We just show up in that energy, and it's felt. I mean, I don't know, you know, what it makes me think of too is, and I'm a highly sensitive person, so I sometimes will enter into a space and feel like, ugh. You know, like I can almost sense what energy was there before. Like maybe there was you know, somebody who was angry or upset, or there was some kind of an argument going on, or what have you. You know, and I can feel that in my body. And over the years, similar to what you're saying with your own personal experience, it's almost like you know, I think about it in terms of if I talk to my kids, it's like a Jedi mind trick. It's not a mind trick. That sounds negative. And it's not a trick. It's just something that's almost like magical, that we have the ability to connect with another way of being. You know, even when we're feeling, we could actually take a few moments and maybe in a matter of 20 seconds can shift that. Like when we're real good, when we're real practiced, right? Which is what I love about what you're offering in this program, is that it's not necessarily just about, and again, you say this in your videos, it's not about like the, you know, cursory massage and you know, and mani-pedi, although those are ways that we can care for ourselves, but there are really incredible practices and skills that we can acquire that help us move through, especially right now with all the adversity and all the uncertainty and all of that, to help us move through that feeling a greater sense of faith and hope and trust and calm, and we're more effective. And I imagine, you know, as a teacher, I mean, I'm not a teacher, but you have such a profound impact on the people who are around you, your students. And so when you're not aligned inside, or you're not feeling rooted or grounded, like that gets passed, and then you have, it's almost like frenetic, right? And I experienced that in my own household. When I'm not at peace, or when I don't feel aligned or grounded, my kids are wackadoo. You know what I mean? Like they're melting down. I mean, they can sense it. And if I can put a plan in place, if I can get clarity, if I can get aligned, if I take time for myself, which I do, like you said, for me, it's fluid self-care, right? I think when you're you know, get a quote unquote expert at it, it's almost like you can't define, it's not defined, like it's just something that happens all day throughout the day, a constant check-in with yourself, and then practices that you do that you don't even think about. They're just there and you engage in them without giving them much thought. So having said that, I hope I didn't deter you or derail you at all there, but I'm curious, inside this program that you're offering, what can educators expect, and you know, how might that apply? And I think about it in terms of, we don't start school, at least in my district, for another couple of weeks. And I think the timing, and I'm sure this was planned on your part, couldn't be more impeccable, because it's a ramping up to, okay, I'm getting ready, I'm going to be in the classroom, right? For many of us, distance learning. We're in California, but and so to have that take place right now, before all that you know what I mean, before all that launches, I feel like it's so key and so super helpful. So can you tell or say more about what's up in this program?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yes, it was very intentional, the timing. I wanted to give educators a chance to spend, you know, depending on when they start, at least a couple weeks, if not more, to start to make little tiny shifts in their mindset, in their intentionality, in their commitment to these positive self-care habits, and simple, sustainable practices that can be, like you described, as fluid in their days. So it's like, I can just hop, you know, for example, on Monday mornings, I start with water, which stands for Weekly Accessible Tools for Educators Restoration. And it's like just a 1 to 5 minute practice that it's just like a thing that you could just drop in any part of your day. And most of them you can also use with students. So it's not like you would even just benefit yourself. You could, if you didn't get a chance to do it, let's all do this together at the start of our Zoom call, or, you know, whatever. And so they could build, and then, you know, it's all recorded. So then they could do that every single day if they want. And hopefully, again, they're, like you described, they're building the muscles, they're practicing. So then it just becomes second nature. Like, oh yeah, let me do this deep breathing practice, this grounding practice, to just come back to my body and be centered and calm again. You know, and also just really at the beginning, I'm also really nurturing tuning into the body, because I think that's something, like you were describing, it's easy for you now because you're so practiced to tune in and know, like, oh, I need to start doing something to take care of myself. I need a mini practice here. Where as you know, everybody's on a different, you know, trajectory on that, you know, so some people may be at the beginning, some people may be here, and so on, and everybody I want to sort of shift along and just keep growing and building those muscles. And so it's very intentional that again, those first couple weeks before school, we build up some good capacity, and we also work on some habits that we can start working on now. So, like, for instance, in terms of nurturing our bodies, so some of those, you know, let's right now start to, like, let's create a couple meal plans before we go back to school, so that we can, let's have that already set up, so I don't need to worry about that come the school year where I start to get really, really busy.
Well, I love that you said that too, because a lot of the educators, you know, that I work with are parents also. Totally. So like they've got this whole thing going on that they're navigating that is like, never before have we done this thing, which is so new. And then you got your own kids at home as well. So I love that you bring up like me, like it's life. Right? It's like being able to organize and plan as much as you can for your life stuff, so that you can show up in real powerful ways.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like all those things ideally before school starts or at the beginning. So you head into school already with a stronger foundation. And then we continue to really, I want to support people into that transition. So now we also establish how to do these habits within the context of school. Now we're in the challenging situation. Let's make sure we cultivate these tools now too, so that we can keep going. And then sort of the end of the program is I'm helping them transition sort of into their own, like, then they would keep being able to continue on with the journey through really strategic planning of how to keep these things up. And ideally by that point, we've already established some new habits because of all the support that I'll be providing and our community will provide. So that's the sort of the timeline and the vision. In terms of sort of more the nitty gritty of the program, every week there'll be a lesson on one of so I have sort of 10 core principles I came up with and established for self-care, educator self-care.
And it's a 10-week program, right?
And it's a 10-week program. Yeah. So it goes through October 3rd. And I have a free webinar right now. So if people want to learn about the core principles, they can hop on and listen to that.
And I'll pause you right there and just say to my community, I'm going to be sending out an email soon. And I will put this in the notes for this video as well, so that you have a link to access all the information for Katie's program, including that the webinar that she's offering for free. Great, super awesome value. So I just want to put that in there.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so, and then sort of, in terms of those core principles, so I'll teach that weekly lesson. So it'll be, this is like sort of our focus of the week. And then there are guided practices. So that water on Monday, and then on Wednesday, there's always a guided meditation between 5 to 10 minutes to give, and then each week will be a different version. So the reason for that is because one of the core principles is that we have to specialize supports for each person. So, which is very, like, we talk about this in education, we differentiate instruction and things like that. And that's really, I'm a big believer that everyone needs self-care, but what is going to work for each person is going to be a little different. So I know you love hiking outside, for example, and I do mention this on the webinar, it's like nature, of course, is fills people up and has all sorts of great research on the benefits of in general, but what particular thing works may be different for different people. So I know, love being out on the trails and in the woods and all those kinds of things. And for me, sometimes I have had a history of having asthma attacks when I did that growing up. So for me, I get a little triggered. So it almost like counteracts a little bit of the benefits. So, but for me, if you put me near a beach, or even if I watch a YouTube video of some ocean waves, my whole nervous system just, so it's like everything, it's customized. It's specialized for you. So that's why I'm giving them so many of these sample guided practices, so they can figure out, like, oh yeah, I really like body scans, but like visualization, not for me, or whatever.
But I love that you switch it up too, because what I have found that works well for myself as well as for my clients is that not the same tools don't always work all the time. You know what I mean? Like the one thing that you think is the sure thing, it may in some situation not work. And so having an alternate or a slightly different version, or even some, like, if you take multiple different meditations and people are like, I'm not a meditation person, that person's voice really like irritates me. I'm like, you know what? So cool. There are like hundreds of millions of bajillions of different kinds of meditations with different voices. So if one is like, rubbing you the wrong way, you can check out another one. So it doesn't mean that that's not for you. It just means you haven't found the right, exactly the right combination, or, what I mean, the chemistry yet. So I love that you offer such a variety of tools for folks.
So that's, one of the exciting things. And then, and the goal throughout the program is we're working on our IWP. So in schools, we have IEPs for kids with special needs, and we have needs. And so we're developing our individualized well-being plans. So it's like really customized to you. And so I walk people through different tools, we're kind of making different action steps so that we can really progress. So it's not just in our minds, these are good ideas, but we're like, this is what I'm committing to on paper, you know, that kind of a thing. And then there's several other handouts. So there's like the IWP we're working on, but there's so many other handouts. There's a progress monitoring habit tracker. There's assessments to figure out which guided practices we love. So there's all sorts of educators spin on handouts to help us, guide us. And then there are guest speakers. So Tina is one of my guest speakers, so I'm super excited. And so
I'm so excited.
Yeah, so every week I'm saying that there are weekly assemblies, just like we have in schools.
Which I like, can we just pause for a second and like, it's so amazing how you kind of mirrored what's happening out there, but really it's, you know, it's like reflecting it and taking your, you know what I mean, the educator through it themselves, right? Because all of it we hold for everybody else. I love that there are assemblies. Like, I'm so stoked to be a part of an assembly. I'm like, it's just delightful to say that for me. So
Totally.
I love how you framed all of it.
Well, thank you. No, it was fun. I mean, I've had these like ideas like just percolating in my mind for a while. So it's like, yeah, we need this. We deserve this too.
Totally.
So Tina will be a speaker, and then that's just again an opportunity to learn additional tools so that I mean, I learned a lot, but I'm always learning more, and I want people to have an opportunity to find other fabulous people who they can connect with in their lives. And like, so after the 10 weeks, it might be like, ooh, I really want to go work with Tina Dodds because she's amazing. And so that way people can also dig deeper on the areas where they realize, you know, by the end of 10 weeks, you know, like I'm still working on certain things that are like my areas that are a little trickier for me. It's like, oh, that's really where I want to go next. And so I'm giving them that opportunity through the assemblies. And then, of course, we're going to be in community. So I have 3 different tiers of the program, just like we have tiered supports in schools. And so tier 1 is really getting all those, the core components that I talked about, plus a private Facebook community where I'll be jumping in and trying to hold everybody accountable for what they're doing and really taking those action steps.
That part, and I was actually, I was curious about that, like if there was, because I know that piece, you know what I mean, being like shoulder to shoulder with other people who are going through what you are going through and sharing what's working and being held accountable for taking good care of yourself can be such a game changer. Like, it's one thing to have the information, right? It's another thing to actually be in the practice of it and to have someone say, I see you. Hey, how did that go? You were going to try this on. Did that work? That didn't work? Okay. So how beautiful to actually not only have the program and the information, but to also be supported and buoyed by community. So awesome. So I'm sorry, continue. Facebook group.
Yeah, so that's at that level. And then the next tier, of course, has all the things below, you know, like in the tier 1, but also has every other, well, we have Together Tuesdays. So every other week for 5 calls, we have scaffolding calls in the virtual teachers lounge, where basically I'll be providing some like group coaching. So we will be, it'll be a deeper dive than the support in the private Facebook group. So it'll be like celebrating wins, but also brainstorming and me facilitating support around like, what are the barriers? What is getting in the way of you taking the steps? Like, let's really dig in and figure out, you know, what's working, what's not, how we can overcome things getting in the way. And then also just really, it's like, okay, everyone's going to, what is your next action step? Me maybe supporting people and making decisions around that, things like that. And then also at that tier, you get 3 lesson plan templates of, so that you can bring this to your staff. So you can bring this to your school. So it'll be, you know, scripts of guided meditations and activities and prompts so that they can then bring this work to their team, because that way it's not like I'm like an island within my school being, you know, it's like, let me bring this to everyone so everyone gets filled up. And then not only are there ripple effects just for me and my students, but it's just widespread. There's just a more general calm across the whole school community.
Systemic.
Yes.
Right? Like, which really creates such a shift energetically for everybody. How incredible. So not only are they getting community support, and it could be across districts, across states, you know what I mean, that anybody could participate, but then having the capability to bring it into your school and to share that. Wow, that's so powerful. So powerful.
So I'm super excited. And then tier 3 is all those things, plus then on the alternating together Tuesdays, there's small group community circles. So that's a little different than the scaffolding calls, because those are, people could pop in and out of those if they wanted and ask questions and get support. Whereas the small group community circles are really a sacred container where we're going to be with the same people no matter what every week, and there'll be confidentiality, and there'll be like an opportunity to practice our vulnerability and sharing, the Brene Brown, I know you love Brene too, talks about so much of the power of that and speaking our truths. And then just, there's so much potential for healing when we're in a community and sharing our sort of deepest truths around these topics. And so it'll be that, and I'll facilitate that, and just hold space for the community so that they can continue to grow. So that's the tier 3 model. And so then that of course comes with everything else. So those are the different versions, different tiers. And I'm so excited because I already have a bunch of people have joined the community, and because I would really just love for not just ripple effects with, within your own interactions and then your school, but this just to be like across the country, across the globe for, because if I ran the world, schools would like start foundationally as like honoring the educators, taking care of them, really making sure their needs were a top priority, because that, it's like if an educator goes to some professional development workshop, but they're like just tapped out that day and whatever, they're not even gonna learn the things, like their mind is just racing with whatever else they're worried about. I mean, I know for me, I've been there, done that. And so like the only way we really can grow and change and support our students better is if we are filled up. So we have something to, we have a cup to pour from that's got something inside. So
one of the things, I don't know if it was really a quote, but it was something that I read somewhere. It's actually in my bio, that is like, we can only take care of others to the extent that we take care of ourselves. Like, that's our capability. So if we ain't giving 100% to ourselves first, there ain't no way we could give 100% to anybody else. We just don't have it in us because we haven't filled it up. So I love the, the metaphors of you're giving from your overflow, right? Like you're already filled up, but you can create so much more impact in that way across the board, in your own family, and then also in your school family as well. And I know truly that some of my dearest friends who've been in education for a long time, my in-laws are also in education, and they give like, oh my God. And those are also some of the most exhausted people I know, right? Who are those people who are just constantly, they see the needs every day, and they're just giving, and they're also run down as well. So I love that you're bringing this program forward, especially at this time. And I got to tell you, you sharing all of that, you know what I mean? All the 3 tiers and everything that's involved, all the support that is involved. I think I took a peek at your price points, and holy crap, lady, you are giving so much value for actually how much, you know what I mean? It is like, it is a no-brainer. If you are an educator, of any sort, I believe that this could really be a game changer, and there's a low barrier there. Like I would imagine, Katie, that this would just continue to grow, and it will not be at this price point for very long because you're giving so much. And so I guess that's my invitation to all of you educators out there. There ain't no excuse, right? And I gotta say, if there's any kind of hesitation, there's this one story that I have when I first started doing a lot of personal growth work, and I invested in a program for myself, a 6 months intensive in sacred leadership. And I also went to my first retreat as part of that leadership program. And at the time, my husband was like, "You're spending what? And you're gonna go away for like 4 days?" Like, to him, it was like vacation. Like, what? You're leaving me with our two boys, and you know what I mean? Like, this is not fair. And you're just having a vacation somewhere. But I got to tell you, when I came home from filling my own cup, he almost didn't recognize me, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, I came in the door, and he's like, "You look like a different person." Like, that's what taking good care of yourself can look like. Like, you become a complete, not completely, but you shift out of a different way into a new way of being, and you shine, and people feel that. And it's so powerful and so incredible. I gotta tell you, after that, any investment I made in myself was so much easier to talk about and negotiate, because he was like, "Wow, when you take really good care of yourself, our whole family," you know what I mean? Like, you're showing up so different for our family. And so, like, okay, let's go self-care. And it also empowered him to take better care of himself, you know what I mean? And advocate for himself. So anyhow, all that to say, so worth it. So worth it for whatever it is that you're charging. But I know it's to me, it's like nominal. So there's low barriers here, and there's nothing but amazingness to be had. So I encourage everybody to at least, at minimum, check out her webinar and hop on this train, because it starts taking off this Sunday. Is that right? The program starts this Sunday.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, I thought about charging a lot more, because I do know, like, I've spent all the money to take care of myself, but I just, at my core, I decided I wanted to make it accessible for, like, everyone. And I know, unfortunately, educators are underpaid.
Absolutely.
And we're in a pandemic, so I also know that, like, some places are having furlough days, and people may have become the lone income in their households because of all the things that are going on with our economy. And I just was like, I want to make sure everyone can access this, because ultimately, like, I just want educators to be able to take care of themselves. And so that was, like, really, like, I sat with my, intuition on this, and I just got very clear that it just felt better to me to get it to more people. So that's really, like, where I was. And my passion so much too is for, like, when I first got into education, it was because I wanted to serve the kids who were, society generally, like, does not treat well. And so oftentimes, teachers and other educators who work in, like, Title I schools, they're the most stressed out of everybody, and they are the ones spending the most of their own money on things, because those schools are so often underfunded. And so I was just like, let me try to make this as accessible as possible. So that was kind of the goal.
For doing that. And that's just the note to everybody, like, jump on right now. Now is the time to do it, because I guarantee it is worth so much more. And bless Katie for offering it as we're in these times that we're in, to make it accessible, more accessible, and to remove any barriers to educators taking really good care of themselves and acquiring tools to head into this new school year powerfully and impactfully. So awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie. I absolutely adore you. I'm a champion of your work, which is why I asked you to come on in the first place, because I feel like people need to know about this. People need to jump up in here. You've got so much wisdom to share, personal and professional, all of that. And so my hope is that I can help you get this message out to maybe a few more people. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and for all the Tina fans out there, because we all are Tina fans. I mean, how could you not be? But first assembly of the program. So
you gotta jump in with us for the first assembly. We're gonna be talking about resilience building skills, which I'm so excited to be sharing.
And it'll be recorded, so if you can't make it, it's like everything's recorded and everything's lifetime access, so you get those recordings, like, so it's grab it while I can.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. So lovely to be with you, Katie. Thank you so much for being here. Isn't Dr. Katie just thebomb.com? Again, like, to me, she's this awesome superhero, an educator herself who really understands, what teachers are up against this upcoming school season. So if you are a teacher and you feel like you could benefit from the program that she's offering around educator self-care, you're going to want to hop into her program sooner than later, as there's only a few days left to enroll. The program starts this Sunday. And again, yours truly, I'm going to be at the first assembly. I just think that's awesome that it's an assembly and I get to be a part of an assembly. So would love to see you there. Katie can be found at constantloveandlearning.com. I'm also going to leave in the notes the link to her webinar, which is free, so you can check out a little bit more information there. And also, I'll leave you a link to the landing page for her program. And know, if you are an educator who has any kind of budget, training budget, and your school is willing to sponsor you, I believe, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that she takes purchase orders for this particular program. Don't quote me on that, but if that's even a remote possibility for you, I would definitely reach out to her because this program that she's offering is going to be so powerful. And I know it's going to be tremendously helpful if you are an educator and you are navigating this upcoming school season. Keep you sane. You got to stay sane, right? For not only for yourself and your family, but for your children as well in your class. All right, hope that was helpful. I am sending big ol' hugs and lots of love your way and look forward to seeing you next time.